October 21st. I'd like to call the Environmental Advisory Committee meeting. The town of Aurora acknowledges that the Anishinaabe lands on which we live and work are the traditional and treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgian Island, as well as many other nations whose presence here continues to this day. As the closest First Nation community to Aurora, we recognize the special relationship the Chippewas have with lands and waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and as a municipality, we join them in these responsibilities. We further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas and Chippewas, recognized through Treaty 13, as well as the Williams Treaties of 1923. A shared understanding of how the rich cultural heritage that existed for centuries and how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together into a better future. Let it be. I have an approval of the agenda. Thank you, sir. Seconded by.
Second.
Appreciate it. And so all those in favor? Okay. We never introduced you. Introduce yourself, please.
My name is Jason. I'm a resident of Aurora. I'm a committee member on a local grassroots group called Climate Action Newmarket Aurora. And I've been auditing your meetings for the last year.
At least.
Probably, yeah.
Thank you so much for the intro. Thank you for coming.
No problem.
We have the vote on the approval of the agenda. We vote. Okay, vote on the approval of agenda. All those in favor? That carries. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll go on to receipt of the minutes of June 17th from 2024. May I have a motion to receive the meeting minutes of June 17th, 2020? When we receive this, we're not saying if it's right or wrong, we're just receiving. Just receiving. You can vote in safety. Thank you, Ken. Bravo. Thank you, sir. Okay, all those in favor? Thank you to all those online. I can't see you that well, but I'll work on it. We have no delegations this evening. We have no matters for consideration. We have two information items this evening. It's memorandum from Manager of Parks and Fleet, Aurora Forest Study recommended policy updates. And we had, I believe, a report on this several months ago, so this would just be an update. May I have a mover and a seconder to put this item on the floor? I'm going to look at my screen. Would anybody online like to move and second this? Thank you. John is moving it. Do we have a seconder? Thank you so much. All those in favor? Okay. Now going on to well, who's going to be speaking on this? Through myself to Matt, are you going to, Matt, I can't see you. I think you're probably there.
Can you guys see me? Can you hear me?
Oh, there, thank you. So Matt is our manager of parks and Matt.
Fleet.
Oh,
Parks and Fleet.
Manager of Parks and Fleet. Okay, so go ahead and make your presentation, please.
Sure. I don't have a formal presentation to share. I'll just quickly brief everyone on, I guess, the executive summary of the memo. So essentially, Councillor Gardner is absolutely correct. We came before this group, I believe it was actually closer to a year ago, before we formally presented our urban forest study update, which was done in partnership with TRCA. So that was a fulsome report that's done every 10 years that measures our canopy growth, the general health of the private and public trees in the town of Aurora. There were a number of recommendations that were included alongside that report, 37, I believe, recommendations from the TRCA that really gave us guidance on where we should focus our efforts and our budget and our capacity rather. And so we've since now reviewed those recommendations. We actually had TRCA put them in a bit of a hierarchy of sort of a first, second, and third category of priorities. And we believe we now have a focus on which we would like to tackle next year. And those being some of the, I think it was the first, and the first recommended priority was to update some of our tree policies. That's where we feel we can make an immediate impact in the health of our tree canopy and just the health of our urban forests. And when I say update our tree policy, so right now, our current tree placement bylaw, I have the number here. I can't remember the actual bylaw number, but it's our tree replacement policy. It hasn't been updated in a number of years. Right now, essentially, it's based on the the tree trunk's width and the number of trees based on the size of the property in order to get a tree permit. And so right now, basically anything under than 25 centimeter DBH is exempt from the bylaw. So we'd like to change some of those things, become a bit more up to date with our municipal partners in Ontario and really North America. But we'll look closest to our municipal partners in York Region and similar scale municipalities. So this is the first step. So basically this report is informing council that we'd like to open this bylaw. We'd like to do a best practices review. We'd like to do a fulsome consultation with our development partners, a best practice review with our municipal partners, consult with committees such as this group and the general public through our Engage Aurora platforms and other social media tools to really get as much input as we can and make sure we're doing it right. But we do feel that updating these core policies that guide our everyday work in terms of tree removals will play a vital role in achieving our canopy cover targets. And so this report sort of summarizes what's going before council in a month, and the feedback we gather tonight will be included in our report to council, and then we'll be back next year once we actually start looking into the update at least once, maybe more than once, to let you know what we're proposing, some of the feedback we've heard, and where council, should they wish to open the bylaw, would like us to go. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Matthew. Are there any questions from the committee? Perhaps I could start. Sorry, does anybody have a question? It says on page 3, and I'd just like to know where this would be, habitat enhancement through naturalization projects. Is there an area that you could point to where we've done that? Or where we might be going to do that?
Yeah, great question, Madam Chair. So we do this every year through multiple projects. The biggest one that's happening most, I guess, soonest to now is our Hamilton Park naturalization project that we're conducting with LSRCA. So if you're familiar with Hamilton Park, just north of St. John's, there's a big area there that's a bit of a drainage pond now that's going to be an enhanced wetland. So, pardon me, we're planting over 1,000 trees and shrubs in partnership with LSRCA there. We've got other projects on the go with LEAF, an organization devoted to reforestation. So we have 2 sites in Aurora this year. I don't have the actual locations in front of me, where we'll be planting upwards of 1,000 saplings as well. And then we have ongoing projects within Shepherd's Bush as part of our agreement with OHT, where we're looking at enhancing smaller areas, almost pockets within the forested area, pollinator species. We're doing some habitat enhancement with things like bat boxes, providing habitat homes. And then we do a ton of this already in the Arboretum with the partnership of the Aurora Arboretum Group. You'll see if you walk there frequently, bat boxes within there, very focused sort of mini ecosystems, if you will, within the Arboretum, where the group there has done a good job of sort of focusing on forests and savanna prairie ecosystems and the different sort of micro environments you might find. So to answer your question, yeah, we do this every year. We're just submitting now new planting sites with LEAF for next year. We've committed through a letter of interest to partner again with them next year. Same thing with OHT. It's a long-term commitment. And then through other opportunities that come up, we always seek to enhance where we can.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can't see there. Yes. So if I could just continue asking some questions. Oh, also, I would like to say that Matt was instrumental in working on the green development policy. So a series of initiatives that developers can choose to enhance the green infrastructure. For example, Matt, do you want to give a couple of examples?
Sure, yeah. Through you, Madam Chair, I haven't actually looked at it as it was part of my previous role in policy planning. But we did a lot of stuff specific to looking at having trees retained through development. So there are encouragements. It's the green development standards, or GDS, are interesting. There are several tiers, and there's a minimum criteria for developers or anybody building. And then there's a sort of a bonus section where you can achieve higher points. Some of the minimum requirements for trees were goals to not remove any trees, to retain as many as you can within your site. Elevated tiers, there were basically multiplications of planting requirements. The GDS is interesting in that it's not a hard, fast requirement. It's highly encouraged in new development. We really looked, and I'm speaking on behalf of my colleagues in policy planning now, and how we could make it as impactful as we could, garnering the support of the development industry, which we consulted with at that time. So the basic requirements are not as rigorous as we would like to get with these policy updates, but they certainly do encourage tree preservation more than anything. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And one of the problems with our tree canopy is that when developers develop property, they cut down a lot of trees, and so that decreases our trees, and so then we need to plant more. And there is a compensation policy, but I think they have to plant. Matt, is it one tree for every tree they destroy, or 2 trees? Can't remember, but they don't have. They're not mature trees. They're destroying mature trees and planting small trees. I can't remember if it's 1-to-1, but I think we're going to be looking at that from what you said in the report. I think we're going to be reviewing that.
That's correct. Yeah, we're looking to update that. So currently now there's some scenarios where you actually don't have to compensate at all when you remove a tree. In other cases, it is 1-to-1, depending on the DBH, the size of the trunk. So that's one of the things we're absolutely looking to elevate through the support of council, obviously. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And also I see that you're going to review the tree. Can't remember what it's called. It's the tree bylaw. I think it's.
I have it here. I just have to scroll down a bit.
Another word to it when we looked over it again. It's supposed to be.
So it's specifically the private
bylaw.
Yeah, the private tree protection bylaw, and then the tree removal, pruning, and compensation policy. Those are the 2 key documents, but we'll be looking at a few other things as well.
So it's really good news, because we'll have a look at our policies and we'll see where there can be improvement. Thank you. It doesn't say when these reports are going to be coming to council, and I imagine to this committee as well.
We are aiming for early spring, so that they can have their biggest impact throughout the development season next year. So our goal is to come back to council by March. Anytime you update a bylaw, I believe there's a 40 or 30-day waiting period before it comes into effect. So we want to get it in as early as we can in the spring so that by say April, May, it is in effect. That's the target. And we don't anticipate any obstructions should council agree with our recommendations. However, if for some reason that doesn't happen, then we would figure out plan B.
I know that your department is working very hard to try and get these things to us. I know it's very important to our director, Sarah Chincan, and to yourself. There is one thing, I don't mean to put you on the hot seat, but I might. So we had a report to council that said, in our budget, we could either spend, put a certain amount of money aside, Matt, to just kind of plant trees. And then the second option was to plant enough trees to keep the level up to what we have now. And then the highest option was to plant trees to increase our tree canopy. And we didn't vote on that one, even though we did have a motion that passed council to try and increase the tree canopy from 35 to 40%. Yes, 40%. It was passed by council, I don't know, maybe a year ago. So I know all of these things go into the budget. Is there going to be anything in the budget that may help us actually increase our tree canopy, or am I putting you on a bad place asking you?
No, that's a fair question. Thank you. So there is a small section in this report that speaks to our focus on budget implications and the request for additional resources. We're not specifically focusing, so that reference that you made is to the natural capital asset plan. That's where those numbers were put forth.
Right.
We haven't taken a deep dive in this proposed work to look at how much money we need to directly spend in terms of that project's goals. That said, we are cognizant to achieve our canopy goals. We need resources in terms of staffing, equipment. We've got a very small forestry and arboriculture group. So how can we utilize the services of some of the partners we're working with? What do we need in terms of staff? Now that the development of Aurora has sort of shifted more to infill, we are dealing with a lot more mature trees in terms of tree removal permits. So our focus there will need to shift. And right now, for example, our crew lead in forestry spends a lot of time on his computer rather than pruning trees, because we're tracking a lot of the permit applications that are coming through. And there's obviously development reviews that happen through our City View portal, through planning that our landscape architects are looking at. So a lot of resources are going into the review of these, and we're reaching a point now where you're seeing a correlation in the mature tree canopy requiring a bit more maintenance in terms of pruning, things like that, to keep it healthy. So there is an element here that we will come back to council with a request for additional budget. Absolutely.
Right. I saw that we maybe an additional staff or moving staff to a different position to do that. It's always about the money. There's two things that really bother me. One is and I've been trying for years to do this. I think, do you know how much it costs to cut down a tree? In fact, to destroy a tree? I think it's $225. It might depend on diameter. It's very cheap to destroy a tree. And it says here that we're going to be looking at to be in alignment with regional and provincial. No, it doesn't say regional, it says regional and municipal. So other municipalities. So is there anything from, like, it means nothing to a developer or somebody who's building a, big house to pay whatever the charge is. It's for sure it's under $300. So is there any thought that we might raise that fee?
Great question. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We're looking to raise that as one of our, that's obviously part of the compensation policy. That's one of the things we're looking to up. Our partners at the region or the regional municipality are focusing very heavily this past year and the year prior on updating these policies, and they did a very deep dive through all of the York Region municipalities. And we're part of a working group with that larger community. So we want to get in alignment. We don't want to necessarily go what's the best way to put this? There's no need to multiply or quadruple it for the sake of making it unreasonable. We want to work with our development partners, but at the same time we want to make it rigorous enough that it's working towards that natural capital asset value. So the value of the tree isn't just a fee that's being thrown together to say, okay, this is what it's costing to remove the tree. It's compensating for other things beyond just the material form, if you will.
Right, the air quality, flood control.
Carbon, things like that,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, tree, yes, trees, and the other thing that really bothers me, does anyone, I might have mentioned this. Do you know, is anybody familiar with the new Winners, with that new plaza where Farm Boy is? Next time you drive by, have a look at the trees that the developer got away with planting there. Matt, I've spoken to Gary about this. Gary Garganis is one of our tree people. You know, we have to be tougher with the developers. We can't. It looks like a wasteland. It's just this huge parking lot and hardly any trees. And the trees that are there are like little sticks. And I know that you have to plant them small, but there's, I mean, it really, it just doesn't look good. And it's on our gateway or whatever you call it, our entranceway or. So I don't know, Matt, I'll just say that to you again. I haven't spoken with Gary in a while. And the other thing is when developers do plant trees, like there's a development on St. John's, they planted these, they planted bushes. They didn't really, it's called a window street, so you basically have the road, the trees, another road, and then homes facing St. John's, which is a really busy street. And they just got away with planting the bare minimum. And I think Gary found money in his budget and has, you know, put a few more trees there. But I shouldn't as a counselor have to chase staff who then have to chase developer or chase a budget. Like it should be a given. And the same thing with maintenance. Like where I live, the developer had to plant trees because it's commercial against residential. So you have to plant trees as a, I don't know, privacy, noise, whatever it is. And they planted swamp cedars. And then this was maybe 20 years ago. Now at least a third, maybe half of them were dead. And there was no requirement for the developer to maintain them. And so now, you know, I tried to speak with the owner, but you know, nobody wants to spend money that they haven't been required to spend. So we'll give that back to you as well, Matthew. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So two of the things we can do that sort of help, and I say sort of, so the landscape design guidelines are another piece that the landscape architects use when they're reviewing development applications that sets sort of the guidelines for the types of trees, the species, the spacing, the minimum requirements. They're a little different between residential and obviously commercial and industrial. But we're looking to make those again a bit more tree focused. The warranty period with the development side is a bit of a trickier one. There are issues with obviously staff capacity, committing to, you know, reviewing after a 2-year period the health of trees, and then obviously with land transfers and ownership changes, it's hard to keep people accountable after so long. So essentially right now, how it works is there's a 2-year period that you have, especially with town-run projects, we can go back and say this tree health is in decline or it's dying or dead. We can ask them to replace that. It's a little trickier beyond that 2 years for the purposes of capacity. It's the same as building certifications and permitting. You basically approve something once it's deemed accepted by the town, and after that it's sort of a foregone conclusion unless it's a town asset. So I almost defer to my planning friends and colleagues there to maybe provide some recommendation, but we'll be working closely, like I said, with Build and with our partners within the municipality and planning to try to come up to some solutions there. And the plaza you referenced, you and I have spoken about that as well. And that's another one where I'd like to see more boulevards within the parking lot with planting. There's obviously a trend with green infrastructure and bioswales and some of these things to help with stormwater runoff too. Again, we can't in parks really control those policies, but it's definitely a conversation that not only the GDS can look at, but our partners in planning can hopefully assist us with some guidance on, and likewise we can assist them with some recommendations when they're ready to update some of those guiding pieces.
Thank you. And I just will last thing I'm gonna say, and we need those trees. We need the shade in, you know, with climate change, we need the shade in parking lots. And it might take away the parking spaces, or it has to be figured out anyway. Yes, we have a question.
Yes, a question through the chair. Thank you for this update and kind of looking at the strategies and stuff. I'm looking at the whole idea of the targeted for implementation within a 3 to 5 year window. And I'm trying to figure out, so at the end of the day, what are the deliverables or what is going to look different from all this implementation? And I understand, like, I'm reading the verbs at the beginning of some of these bullets, right? It's continue to, the idea of continue to promote. Okay, so that's education. The idea of develop a strategy. And I feel like I understand that policy is very important to build the foundation towards action. But I'm wondering if we're going to be able, after this 3 to 5 year period, if we have thresholds of success that we might be able, an objective measure to say, yeah, have we achieved this? Have we succeeded? Have we not succeeded? Or am I reading this and am I to interpret it that it's like, well, at the end of the 3 to 5 year periods, we'll have a lot of policies. But if we asked you, so what is the tangible difference? We'd have difficulty describing what that looks like in the community.
Excellent question. Thank you, Matthew.
Fantastic question. So through you, Chair. So yeah, obviously the tangible updates are the policies, so the tree replacement and the compensation. But we really, I think we'll achieve, and this is why we're focusing on the tree bylaw. Right now, our tree replacement standards are extremely lax. If you have, I think it's less than 0.25 of an acre, you're permitted to remove 2 trees per year of any size without a permit. By effectively updating that, going to something like a 1-per-1 policy, where we say doesn't matter the DBH, anything within. So we're looking to lower that DBH to something probably closer to 10 centimeters. So anything above 10 centimeters, you're already having to replace or compensate for. So as much as we always prefer replacement, tree replacement, there are instances where it's going to be compensation. By elevating those values, that money gets put towards those additional projects, some of that naturalization work I spoke to earlier. So we're pretty confident that simply by, as a first step, updating these bylaws, this bylaw and that compensation policy, we can make a tangible impact, because right now the fees are so low and the requirement is so minimum that most people don't need a permit at all. So you could have 10 trees in your backyard and over a 5-year period remove all of them and not have to provide any sort of compensation whatsoever or any kind of replacement. So we have partner municipalities and references where replacements are not even 1-to-1, they're 1-to-3. So you remove one tree of a certain size, you've got to plant 3 of a certain size. And so canopy wise, that's our tangible target. So within 5 years, if we're say growing to 37% canopy cover, and there's 100 different metrics within that canopy cover target that would add up to an increased percentage, not just replanting, it's protection of your existing canopy, a whole bunch of other things. And then you have to include things like invasives and trends and things that might affect it. So there's so many things that can affect that percentage. But if within 5 years we can see that increasing, we know we've made an impact. Now, hopefully by 5 years of the 37 recommendations that are included in that initial report, we're not just hitting this bylaw and compensation. I would hope by this would be our focus next year. In the next 3 to 5, we would start hitting other milestones. Potentially now there's money in the budget to do different work. Obviously we go a year by year for budget increases and proposals. So I am confident that this is a great first step and it should have an impact immediately. Yeah.
And to follow up through the chair, it's like, no, thank you. I appreciate that. I understand that this is the first step. I guess with my background, and I'm thinking about the indicators and how are you going to tell the success story to the community, right? The idea of if your policy is going to save X amount of trees because of wider diameters, like I know it would make me feel more comfortable as a resident to kind of see, okay, this is the type of story I should be expecting so that you can report, hey, we saved 100 trees over this past period because of the changes to the bylaw. And even better would be kind of instead of waiting just to say progress, kind of saying, based on this policy, we anticipate saving 500 trees and then measuring that over the time period to say, did we actually achieve that goal or not, right? Because I feel like, I know for me, my eyes glaze over with policy and stuff. I recognize that it's very important as a foundation, but as a resident and a citizen, I need something a bit more tangible that says, yes, here is what we can see where we've made a difference. Because I understand that the 40% that's our overall target. But as was mentioned, like there's so many factors that kind of feed into that I can see that you can easily explain away where if we don't have this, oh, it must have been something else out of our control. And I feel like for me, it's a first step, but I'd love to know what that the third step is and to ensure that we're on track, I guess, through the chair. So thank you.
I know that Matthew agrees. This is going to be going to council. And that is a good question, should be asked from council. And Matthew will be prepared. Or Sarah, whoever is, thank you. No, absolutely, it's accountability. When we did our first environmental advisory, on the Environmental Advisory Committee, our first, I guess, action plan on the environment, there were all these wonderful things, and staff member was assigned to be in charge of them.
Yeah.
So that was the worst case scenario. But yeah, we've come a long way, and you could ask your politicians at the next election. Matthew, is there any? It's a thorough report. Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I don't think so at this time. I do see there's a couple people online that have some questions or hands raised.
Sorry. Yes,
So
I see that.
I'll defer to them first.
Thank you. So sorry. I don't know who's first. Do you have any idea who's first? Okay, so sorry, Sean, we'll go with the lady first, Nicole.
And sorry, I apologize for being late to the meeting, but the other thing I just wanted to add is as another opportunity perhaps to look at, Matt, is the Tree Canada, where they have opportunities where they bring corporate sponsorship, and that's another way of perhaps getting large amounts of trees planted to help with the canopy. So I know you're working with LEAF, I believe. But there could be other opportunities to help generate more areas on campus, or not campus, on in the municipality.
Thank you.
That's great.
That's a good suggestion. Matthew, have we considered that? Yes, you're saying yes?
No, I think that's a great suggestion. We have had partnerships with corporate groups to do some invasive species removal in the past. And I'm sure we've done partnerships with tree plantings in the past. We haven't this last year, other than obviously LEAF. But that's a great suggestion and something we'll look into.
And maybe we could approach the owner of the property where Farm Boy and Winners is. And also the storage facility next door. Sean. You have a question?
Yep, I had a question through you, Madam Chair. This report is really great. I was referring back to the original report with the 36 recommendations, and I might have missed the previous session where we talked about it, but it's great that we're tackling the highest priority ones. I recall seeing the ranking. Are there plans to deal with the secondary and the tertiary items that were suggested? So one of the ones that jumped out at me was the incentivizations for private landowners to plant greater diversity of native trees.
Great question. So through you, Madam Chair, there are plans to commit to all of the second and third tier priorities. We'll probably look at that towards the end of next year in a follow-up report after we've implemented the bylaw changes and updates. Just because of the complexity of looking at the compensation and replacement bylaw, the private tree protection bylaw. Sorry, I keep mixing up the two. We're focusing on this solely. We didn't want to give too much to council and too much to staff at once to focus on, but those won't be forgotten in any case. So yeah, great point. I'll make sure to include that feedback in our takeaways from today too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew.
Yeah, thank you through you, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering, and this is a question for Matthew. I'm just wondering where we are at with the removal of ash trees, either from town boulevards or private property where they may have been afflicted by the ash borer, and if that's had any, if that's being taken into account in terms of our net tree canopy.
Thank you.
Another good
Matthew?
question. Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Great question. So we are, I believe, in the 11th year of our 10-year budget increase to deal with emerald ash borer. For I think the first 5 years, we were on a yearly injection regime where the trees would be essentially infused with something that would help restore the health of the tree. I don't have the scientific background to explain how that works specifically. And right now, so I don't have a percentage of the remaining ash in town. I can tell you that in the science within the tree study, the numbers that committed to count to our canopy were actually omissive of ash, so they didn't use the numbers to inflate the canopy. So actually our active canopy cover is actually a little higher, including the ash, but it wasn't incorporated because it didn't, knowing that we would mostly lose all of the ash, it was omitted from some of those numbers. So the last update that I have is, I believe we're tapering off injections now. So they were every year. Now I believe most of them were every other year. And then they're still being actively removed. Once they've become a hazard, they're being removed. So I don't know exactly, and maybe this is something to include in our comment section for a report to council, how many ash we have left. But we are hoping to come back to council in a report in 2025, specifically on invasive species and pests and anything affecting. It's a whole other report though, but it obviously indirectly impacts, actually not indirectly, it directly impacts the canopy cover. So we are keeping track of it, but it isn't, the ash isn't sort of falsely inflating our canopy metrics right now, if you will. Yeah.
And just through Madam Chair, just a follow-up comment. So just in terms of your staffing and resources for, we did have a town tree that was impeding the access to our driveway. And so my wife did call the town, and within 3 to 4 days, town staff were actually on site pruning the tree. Did a really marvelous job and cleaned up and so forth. So from a customer excellence standpoint, I just wanted to compliment staff. So
How's
Thank
the
you.
tree doing?
it's doing very well, yeah. No.
Oh,
Anytime it rained or snowed, we would have to sort of like push the tree branch up actually. So we didn't,
thank you very much.
yeah.
I think, Matthew, I'm looking for the date of the bylaw. The tree protection bylaw.
I believe it's either 15 or 16. I have to double check. It might actually be
Okay,
2017.
that's good enough, so 8, 9 years, yeah, and a lot has changed in the world since then with respect to understanding about trees, so yeah, it's time. Just as a little bit of interest, that bylaw took 3 councils. It started in Phyllis Morris's council and it went through 2 more councils before we could agree on it. So it was a big improvement, but I think the things that you said about the tree diameter and the exemptions, yeah, I don't think you should be able to take down any tree. Is that what you're aiming for? Or are we reducing it to 1 tree?
So we're hoping to have it be 1 for 1, probably lowering the DBH from 25 to closer to 10, 15. So anything greater than 10 to 15 centimeter DBH, and again, don't quote me, this will all be researched and then proposed to council to be implemented, but that's from my perspective, the target area. That's where a lot of the trends have gone.
That would make a big difference.
Mhm.
Protect quite a lot of trees. Thank you. Are there any other questions, Matthew? Matthew, thank you very much for your work, and I have confidence in you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to say this committee has confidence in you, and I know it's not easy, and I know it depends on council to agree to these things. So we'll put up the good fight. Thank you. So now we need a vote. A vote, as we just received. Okay, all those in favor of receipt? Thank you. That carries. Goodbye, Matthew.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew was in the planning department. And now he's working, I didn't realize he was in charge. Now he's working with Sarah Chinkamp, who's more parks and planting and environment. So it was a really good move. Okay, we have one more item. Oh, okay, so this is the citizen member recruitment for advisory committees. It's I think under Mayor Marakis, we have a policy that instead of serving straight for the whole time of the committee, that in order for us to maybe get some more experience, that after about the 2-year mark, we ask committee members if they have an interest in staying on the committee. And if they don't, to let us know. And I heard in the report, which I think is weird, that if you want to stay, you have to agree. So anybody who's listening,
Hi.
Does anybody?
Hi, Madam Chair. Hi, this is Ashita. How are you?
Oh,
Good evening,
Sheeta, you're
everyone.
speaking to this. Everybody, this is Sheeta.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet everyone. Apologies for not being able to attend in person. But no, I can provide an overview. I'll wait for the motion to go on the floor to receive, and I can provide an update, Madam Chair, however you
Thank
prefer.
So, a motion to allow Sheeta to present. Thank you.
Well, just to receive the item.
We have 2 votes right here at the table. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Perfect, right. So I just wanted to provide, so the purpose of this memo is just to inform the committee members why are we here. And it is correct, the beginning of this council term, a decision was made by council, was that citizen members will be appointed for a 2-year term only. So that means that that means that this particular round of membership will expire December 31st of this year. And the way the process it works is that because it will be repeating, so what we will be doing is we'll be repeating the process again that we did at the beginning of the term. So the whole recruitment process starts again. So if you as a member are interested in reapplying to be on the committee or any other committee of interest, the vacancies are online right now on our boards and committees page. The information is available in the memo as well, and then all the applications will be brought forward for council's consideration. It's basically a repeat of the process. So it's not just so all members have to reapply and must reapply if they wish to continue on this committee or any other committee of interest. So the application process is we're basically repeating the process that we did in the beginning of the term. And I'm happy to take any questions that anyone has about the process and the recruitment period. Just a small note, the recruitment period is open and live right now, and it will be on until November 1st.
Thank you. So that's actually that's coming up pretty fast. Does anybody on Zoom or in the present have any questions for Sheeta about this? Dennis?
Through the chair, thank you for this update. I am curious to know, for transparency's sake, how, I guess, applications might be adjudicated to align themselves with the goals of this policy change. I guess because ideally you would have more applications to filter through than positions on the committee, and just trying to get an idea of how they might be adjudicated to provide citizens opportunity to sit on these committees.
Thank you, Sheeta.
Correct. So through you, Madam Chair. So the purpose, like I said, like the decision to appoint for a 2-year term was a decision by council. So hence we're re-recruiting it. In terms of the applications and the committees, like all applications are actually brought forward for councils for consideration. So based on the terms of reference and based on the applicant's interest and who has applied, and based on experience and based on various merits of the terms of reference and merits, of course, of the applicant, decision is made. But again, like I said, the decision is a council decision. In terms of opportunity, I believe the whole purpose when this was struck by council, it was an opportunity to provide members to not only expand their interest in other committees, but if they wish to continue on, then they can. And we have had various efforts for outreach as well. So we have done a lot of outreach through social media, through ads in newspapers, and of course, an email has gone out to all of our existing members as well to continue on. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, Dennis, but I think if in terms of opportunity, like it provides opportunity to members to continue on if they wish to, or they can apply to other committees as well. So it's not restrictive to just one committee. Like you can apply to others, and everything there, and then if council feels, and if to waive any matters or waive any policies, waive any clauses of the policies, and they're allowed to do that as well. So it's council decision at the end of the day is what I'm trying to get at. Yeah.
Thank you. Dennis, does that satisfy your question?
Would it be fair to say through the chair that I should be seeing council as the hiring committee? Because I guess what I'm trying to do is, as I make my decision here, I'm trying to understand, I've really appreciated my time here, but based on the vision of council for this policy, I'm trying to figure out, is this something where I should be stepping back to allow others to take a turn at the position to gain the experience? Or is this something where it's like I should be going to a different committee, or should I just be staying here? Because I feel like 2 years seems like a very short time. And I think there's very good opportunity for changing it up and having a diversity of opinion. But I also feel like the success of the committees also needs to be anchored in some type of, I guess, continuity. Thank you. Sure, yeah.
Myself, do you?
No, we understand, Dennis, and this has been the first time we've done a midterm re-recruitment and revamped it. So just to provide some context, that this is previous terms, there hasn't been any we haven't done this. So this is the first time. So again, it was council's vision and direction to do so. So that's why we're here about it, and it came through what council felt to allow more participants and to allow more outreach. In terms of interest in applying, it's totally, it is up to the applicant. So you may wish to apply again to whichever committee you prefer. So the intention is not to restrict anyone to applying. You may wish to, if you're interested in just the one committee, you're more than welcome to apply. And if you're interested in others, it basically opens the doors. It will not restrict anyone to not reapply. Like you'll be equally reconsidered. And all applications, like I said, will be considered based on the experience in the terms of reference and what is being looked for that committee. Yeah.
Thank you. So there was some thought that maybe it was, too long a time to serve for some people. But Dennis's point is well made, because we didn't start. It takes a while to get up and running. I don't know when this committee started, 1 month. And then we stopped sitting in June before the election, unless there's something, very important that needs to be discussed by the committee. So really it works out to perhaps a little more than 3 years. And it takes a while to get up and running in a committee. But it does give somebody an option. They don't have to feel badly if they want to step down. It gives an option. And maybe some residents want to gain more experience on other committees, but certainly I would step down or change committees. I think this is a good committee, and although I know you would love to be on the committee, so if any, and so we'll know if how will we know, or how will I know if there are any changes in the committee?
So through you, Madam Chair, the process will be the same. All applications will be brought forward to council, in a report to council, and then council will be making the decision. So and successful candidates will then be notified accordingly. So it will be the same process as we went through the first time around. Yeah.
Thank you. Ken.
Through you, Madam Chair, what is the timeframe for which people would be appointed or reappointed? So I assume that the final meeting of this 2-year term is in December. When would we, and obviously this would be a decision that would be made in camera first, before it went to public session. And then I guess people will be informed in due course thereafter, but I'm just trying to get a sense of, would we reconvene if we were to be appointed or reappointed, like in February, or would it be March? I'm just trying to get a sense of, the 2025-2026 calendar.
Yeah, certainly. So we are our deadline, again, like as I mentioned earlier, Madam Chair, is November the 1st. So based on that, all applications will be brought forward, ideally sometime in December for council's consideration, and that is correct, in camera first. And then when a decision has been made, our 2025 meeting calendar was on the agenda. So the meeting schedule will be posted after tomorrow's council meeting, once council has confirmed from the meeting calendar. And once the new committee is struck, based on the membership, based on if they're returning members versus new members, we would then make sure that the decisions are made in such a way that we're able to have the first meetings as per schedule. So we're looking at the first round of meetings next year, starting starting in February for most committees, and some in January, depending on if they're meeting monthly. So based on the terms of reference. So in terms of timelines, we are hoping to have a decision made and hoping to bring forward these applications by the end of this year. Yeah.
Thank you.
And just by way of follow-up through you, Madam Chair, would all new and returning committee members, regardless of this committee or whatever committee, be required to attend a orientation session, similar to what we were at the beginning?
Correct. So we are going to ensure that everyone is up to speed with terms of the orientation process, and also if there is any accessibility training that is required and needs to be renewed, we will also be reaching out to members, either new or returning, about that as well. So that will be the next steps following after recruitment has been completed and decided. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no more questions, all those in favor of receipt of information? Thank you, that carries. Thank you, good night, see you tomorrow. Yeah.
Have a good night.
New business. I have no new business. You guys have any new business? I don't see any. So, I would just say that, you know, it's, if you want to continue with this committee, that would be great. If you want a new experience, that would be great. This is a good committee. Although we do have somebody who would also like to be on this committee, so nobody has to feel guilty if they want to change. And there is a list of the committees with this report. Quite a long.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, again, I don't think we ever achieved like the full complement of citizen members for this particular committee. I think we were shy of like a couple.
I can't get my ears straight. This is the second year of this committee. The second. We had this committee, we always had an EAC, and then we didn't. And then Councilor Gillen brought forward a motion. Yes, so we had it last term. And I can't remember this term, but last term we had a lot of people apply. And really. And I think there are some committees that we do have trouble with, but the Environmental Advisory Committee is pretty popular. It's a good question. And actually this committee has had some big reports this year. We've had a few big, so it's, I think it's been an interesting committee, and if you didn't have time to read the whole report for tonight, there's a lot of stuff in it that will help your knowledge of what staff is trying to do. Staff is really good and they try their best, but it always comes down to money. And you can see that because we didn't, it's ironic, we voted to have a 40%, aim for a 40% tree canopy, but we didn't put the money in the report that followed several months later to achieve that. So it's, you know, staff does their best, and we'll do our best as a committee. And then it just goes to the budget. So it's, I mean, to me, it's extremely important because of climate change that, you know, we're doing a really good job in spending the money. And this area is most prone. Our thing with climate change will be, I think, windstorms and, yes, and flooding. And trees are extremely important. And then, of course, in the summer, you know, we need more shade. There's no way around it. We don't need heat islands, and you know, we need. So it's not only the beauty of the trees, but I've had a long fight. And it's only in the last election that candidates started talking about climate change. I thought I was nuts. Such that at a meeting once, it wasn't happening. You remember me sitting here? I'm telling you about this. You know, I won't be around, but you guys will. Anyway, so just to thank you all for being on this committee, and thank you so much for auditing the committee. And I think you told us last time more about the committee that you're on, the Aurora Newmarket Committee. Guys, could I have 5 more minutes, or? Can you just, would you just remind us again what that committee does that you're on, what their priorities are?
Anything related to climate action.
Okay.
So, we have, we're working on preparing a deputation right now. I actually have to work on it for council.
So it's anything, it's climate action,
Newmarket Aurora.
Newmarket Aurora, and you give reports to Newmarket Council?
Nope, we're completely separate, organized, independent organization, grassroots residents. So a couple months ago, we gave a deputation to Newmarket Council
Right.
to end the fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty. I'm gonna ask that Aurora Council does the same once I have the presentation.
Oh, good.
Prepared.
Good.
There's another group called Plant-Based Treaty, which is very
I'm sorry,
similar.
what is it called?
Plant-Based Treaty.
Plant-based?
Yeah, treaty. Which is modeled under the fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty as well. They're a separate organization. They also deputized before Newmarket Council, and I'm going to ask them to do the same with Aurora, just to get the city or the town to incorporate more plant-based food, say in like hospitals and schools and such, wherever they have jurisdiction. Done public rallies at Yonge and Moolock. We did a lot with Greenbelt last year. A lot of public education. Anything to help us with climate.
Right, and with the Aurora Council, like, I mean, it would be your region that would be the appropriate, really, to do anything about it. about the plant-based treaty, but it is a good educational opportunity.
Yeah.
And hopefully the paper will also, viewer will also pick up and the banner. Yeah, the more education, better. And anyway, thank you.
Oh, no problem. I was down in Durham this past weekend. Durham had their climate roundtable for the entire region. That was interesting. They had a doctor prepare their greenhouse gas emissions inventory, so they were presenting that to public. And there were actually some climate deniers that came in and asked some interesting questions.
And there's a lot of farms in Germany.
Yes, and there's also a cement plant apparently as well. So someone representing the plant, I'm guessing, was worried about job cuts and stuff like that.
I don't think they have to worry, they have to worry about running out of materials to make snow. That's what I heard. I don't think we're. But very interesting. Thank you very much for telling us.
My pleasure.
So I shall call for an adjournment. Who would like to make the adjournment? Okay, Ken. Somebody up there, thank you, Sean. All those in favor? So I'll see you in December.
Sounds good. Thank you.